Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're setting the table. I mean, quite literally.
Where?
I want you to imagine we're transporting ourselves back, way back to the first century. We're walking right into the dining room of a leading Pharisee.
Right, and the air's thick. You know, you can probably smell the roasting meat, but it's even thicker with tension.
Absolutely. The food, I'm sure, is excellent, but the conversation. That conversation is about to just completely shatter the social norms of the entire ancient world.
It is a fascinating scene, and, you know, you have to place it in context. We're looking at what scholars call the Perean ministry of Jesus.
Right.
So we are, roughly 6 months, maybe a year before the crucifixion. The shadows are definitely getting longer. The stakes are getting so much higher.
And he's using something as simple and as, intimate as a dinner party.
Yeah, a dinner party. He's using that to explain some of the most complex, profound realities of the kingdom of God.
And we aren't just going to read these stories, flat on the page like it's a newspaper. We're doing something a little different today, something a bit more rigorous.
Mm-hmm.
We're using what we're calling the four-lens camera concept.
Mm.
We're taking a stack of sources that harmonize the gospel accounts to look at Jesus through four really distinct perspectives all at the same time.
Right, because I think we often do this. We read a parable in Luke, and then, maybe a few weeks later we read a teaching in Matthew, and we forget that they are all painting a single composite portrait.
Yeah, it's not four different Jesuses.
Exactly. It's like looking at a sculpture. You have to walk around it. You need to see it from every angle to get the full dimension.
I like that analogy.
So that's what we're going to do. We're going to look at these events through the lens of Matthew, who, he presents Jesus as the king. It's all about fulfilling prophecy, demanding absolute allegiance.
Okay, so that's lens one, the king.
Then you have Mark. Mark gives us the lens of the servant. His gospel is just. It's all action. Jesus is active. He's suffering. He's constantly moving, always serving the lost.
Then, of course, there's Luke. And Luke gives us the ultimate man, or the perfect man.
Yes, the compassionate savior, the one who feels so deeply for the marginalized, the poor, the social outcasts. You get this incredible emotional depth from Luke.
And finally, John, the lens of God.
The divine perspective. I mean, it's this eternal scope, always focusing on the deity of Christ, the divine initiative.
So as we go through the narrative today, and it's quite a journey, from the dinner table to the dusty road and eventually all the way to a pigsty, we're going to keep swapping these lenses.
Right. We'll be asking, okay, where is the king in this story? Where's the servant? Where's the man? And where do we see the hand of God?
I love that. I really do. It transforms the text from, a flat image into more of a hologram.
That's a great way to put it.
And our roadmap today, it is packed. We're going to cover the Great Supper, which is all about the invitation. Then we shift gears and move to the conditions of discipleship. That's the heavy cost.
Mm-hmm.
Then the famous Lost trilogy, that's all about the pursuit. And finally, we get into some really, really tricky teachings on stewardship and the law.
It's a complete journey. It really is. From the free invitation all the way to the responsibility that comes with it, it covers the full arc of the Christian life.
So let's do it. Let's jump right into that dining room. We're in Luke chapter 14. Jesus is eating with Pharisees. Now, context is everything here.
Everything.
He has just healed a man with dropsy on the Sabbath. Right in front of them. So you can imagine the mood. The Pharisees are just watching him like hawks.
Right. They're looking for any misstep, any tiny infraction.
And right in the middle of this tense silence, one of the guests, he just blurts out something that sounds very religious. He says, "Blessed is everyone who will eat bread in the kingdom of God."
It sounds nice, doesn't it? It's a very pious thing to say.
Totally safe.
It's the kind of thing you'd say at a church potluck to fill the silence. But we have to understand the psychology behind that statement.
Okay.
In that culture, everyone assumed that when the Messiah finally came, there would be this huge cosmic banquet, the Messianic feast. Isaiah talks about it.
Right, the feast on the mountain.
Exactly. And this guest, being a Pharisee, or at least dining with them, he just assumes that every good, law-abiding Jewish leader would automatically have a seat at the head table. It's a given for him.
So it's not really a statement of piety, it's a statement of self-assurance.
It absolutely is.
He's basically looking around the room and saying, isn't it going to be great when us, the good guys, the insiders, are all celebrating together in glory?
Precisely. He assumes automatic inclusion based entirely on his social and religious standing. And Jesus, well, in his characteristic fashion, he doesn't just nod and smile. He doesn't let that comfortable assumption stand for a second.
No, he dismantles it.
He dismantles it with a parable, the parable of the great banquet.
Now, to really feel the shock of this parable, we have to unpack the social mechanics of a first-century dinner party. Our sources really emphasize that this wasn't like, a modern Evite or a Facebook event.
Not at all.
There was a very specific protocol for invitations in the ancient Near East, wasn't there?
Oh, absolutely. This is the double invitation system. And if you miss this detail, you miss the entire insult that drives the story.
Okay, so break that down for us.
Here's how it worked. First, a host would send out an invitation well in advance. I am holding a great banquet on this day. The guests would accept. That's the commitment.
So it's more than an RSVP, it's a pledge.
It is a pledge of honor. You are telling the host, I will be there. You're giving your word.
So that's step one, save the date, but with a social contract attached.
Exactly. Then, on the actual day of the feast, when the meat was finally cooked and the wine was poured, because, they didn't have clocks or microwaves to time things perfectly, the host would send servants out a second time.
And they would say what?
They'd say, come, for everything is now ready.
Okay, so if you accepted that first invitation, you were locked in. There was no backing up.
You were absolutely honor-bound. To reject the second summons, that come now call, it wasn't just rude. It was a declaration of social war.
Wow, that's strong.
It was a public slap in the face to the host's honor. It was effectively saying, I have found something better, more important than your table, and I am willing to publicly shame you in front of the entire community to pursue it.
That just sets the stage perfectly for the drama. So, in the parable, the servant goes out to say, it's ready, and the text says, they all alike began to make excuses.
All of them.
And Jesus lists 3 specific ones. And reading through them, I tried to put myself in their shoes, and they seem reasonable. I mean, they aren't blowing off the dinner to go rob a bank or something.
They do sound reasonable to our modern capitalist ears, for sure. But let's look closer at the cultural absurdity of each one. The first guy says, I have bought a field and I must go see it. This represents, possessions, real estate, wealth. But just think about it for a second. Who buys a field in the ancient world without inspecting it first?
A terrible investor.
Or a liar. It's not plausible. You inspect the land, you check the water sources, you kick the dirt before the transaction.
Right.
To say you need to see it after you've already bought it and it just happens to be right at dinner time is a transparently flimsy lie. It just shows his love for his new property completely outweighs his respect for the host.
Okay, that makes sense. Then the second guy says, I bought 5 yoke of oxen and I go to examine them. So this is business, career, work.
And it's the exact same problem. You don't buy 5 yoke of oxen, which is a massive capital investment. I mean, that's like buying 5 tractors today without testing them first.
You'd want to know what you're getting.
Of course. You check their teeth, their legs, their strength. You see how they pull together. Again, it's a ridiculous excuse that just masks a deeper prioritization of commerce over relationship and honor.
And the third guy, I have married a wife, and therefore I cannot come.
This one, it appeals to domestic affection, family relationships. Now, it's true that under Mosaic law, a newlywed man was exempt from military service for a year.
Right, Deuteronomy 24.
But he wasn't exempt from social obligations. As one of our sources pointed out, he could have brought her with him. Or, even more to the point, since the date was set long ago, remember that first invitation? He shouldn't have scheduled a wedding to conflict with it.
So if we strip away the surface logic of all 3 excuses, what is the actual spiritual diagnosis here? What is the sin that's really being illustrated?
The expert analysis here is so critical. Notice that none of these men are doing overtly evil things. They aren't off murdering, stealing, or, worshiping Baal.
No, they're doing normal life stuff.
Good stuff. Buying land is a blessing from God. Plowing with oxen is honest work. Marriage is a God-ordained institution. The sin isn't the activity itself. The sin is the disordered love.
Disordered love. I like that.
It's idolatry of the good. That's what it is. It's allowing a good thing to become an ultimate thing.
So the good becomes the enemy of the best.
Precisely. It's the preoccupation with a temporal land, cows, romance that completely crowds out the eternal invitation of the king. The enemy, he often doesn't need to tempt us with blatant wickedness. He just needs to tempt us with busyness.
Wow, that hits home. I mean, it's usually not the bad stuff that keeps us from the important stuff. It's the good stuff that keeps us so occupied we don't have time.
Exactly.
Now, let's apply our lenses. How do the different gospel writers, with their unique perspectives, view this rejection?
Well, let's start with the man lens. That's Luke. Luke portrays Jesus as the one who's always reaching out to the marginalized. So when the elites, the ones with the oxen and the land, when they say no, the master becomes angry.
Right.
And he tells the servant, "Go out quickly to the streets and lanes of the city and bring in the poor and crippled and blind and lame."
This is such a classic Lucan theme. The banquet table doesn't remain empty. The demographic just gets a radical shift.
Exactly. The grace of God is going to the people who know they are hungry. The religious elite thought they had a reserved seat, but their pride, their disordered loves, kept them out. It's the outcasts, the ones who never dreamed of even entering such a house, who are the ones feasting at the table.
Okay, now let's swap the lens. How does Matthew, the king lens, how does he handle this?
In Matthew's parallel account, that's the parable of the wedding feast in Matthew 22, it's even more intense. It really emphasizes the king's authority. The original guests, who clearly represent the religious leadership of Israel, they have rejected not just a dinner, but the king's son. So the invitation is revoked. The king has the sovereign right to invite a new nation.
Which points forward.
Absolutely. It foreshadows the inclusion of the Gentiles. It fulfills that amazing prophecy in Isaiah 25 of a feast for all peoples on God's holy mountain.
There's a specific phrase in Luke's story that I really want to unpack because it has a dark history of interpretation. The master tells the servant to go to the highways and hedges and compel them to come in. Historically, that phrase, compel them, was used by figures like Augustine and later in the Middle Ages to justify forced conversions or religious coercion. Convert or die, basically.
Tragically, yes. That is a horrific and complete misuse of the text. We have to look at the Greek word here, anakazo.
Okay.
In this context, it doesn't mean physical force at all. It implies an urgent, a persistent, a passionate persuasion. I think a good translation is constraining love.
I like that. Maybe think of it like this. If you see a homeless man and he's freezing outside your mansion and you invite him in for a 5-course meal, what is his reaction going to be?
He's going to hesitate. He's going to think it's a trick or a joke.
Yeah, he'll look at his dirty clothes and say, I can't go in there, I don't belong.
Right, so to compel him in that situation is to grab him gently by the hand and say, no, really, it is safe. You are wanted. My master insists you come in. It's about overcoming their sense of unworthiness, not their free will.
That is a beautiful image.
Because the master wants his house full. He will not let the rudeness and the insults of the first guests result in an empty table. But, and this is the critical warning, the door does close eventually. The parable ends with a very heavy verdict. None of those men who were invited shall taste my supper.
It's the somber note of grace, isn't it? Grace is free, but it must be received.
Yeah.
If you continually say, not now, because of your oxen or your land, eventually that not now just becomes a never.
And that is the danger of the good excuse. It hardens the heart just as effectively as open rebellion does.
So that's the invitation. It's open, it's urgent, but it requires prioritizing the host above everything else, which leads us perfectly into the next segment. Jesus leaves the dinner party, he walks out of the Pharisee's house, and now he's suddenly surrounded by a great multitude.
And right here we see this massive shift in tone. At the dinner, he's talking about a free invitation, all about grace. But now he turns to the crowds who are just, tagging along for the miracles in the show.
The hangers-on.
Exactly. And he starts talking about the price of admission. He moves from come to the feast to count the cost.
And he does not mince words. This is where we get one of the absolute hardest sayings in the Gospels, Luke 14.26. If anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father and mother, and wife and children and brothers and sisters, yes, and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Okay, expert, help us out. I love my mom. Is Jesus telling me I have to hate her to be a Christian?
No. And this is where a little bit of linguistic analysis saves us from a lot of heartache and misunderstanding. Jesus is using a very common Semitic idiom. It's a form of stark hyperbole that's used for contrast.
Okay.
In that culture, hate, in this specific context, operates on a sliding scale. It simply means to love less by comparison.
So it's about hierarchy, not about animosity.
Exactly. It's a comparison of loyalty. And if you look at Matthew's account, let's put on the king lens here, it clarifies this perfectly. Matthew 10.37 reads, "He who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me."
So that's the key. More than me.
That's the key. It's a loyalty test. You have to remember, in the ancient world, the family was everything. It was your identity, your social security, your religion, your political party. It was your entire world.
So, to follow Jesus, this new king, you might have to directly go against the wishes of your clan patriarch, your father.
Precisely. If your father says, stop following this Nazarene, and you say, I cannot, in that world that is seen as treason to the family, your allegiance to Jesus must be so absolute, so primary, that your very deep attachment to your family looks like hate in comparison.
And Luke, using the lens of the ultimate man, he really focuses on the emotional cost of that detachment. It's painful. It tears the deepest human ties.
It does. Jesus isn't saying family doesn't matter. He's saying that if the family becomes an idol that prevents you from following God, the idol has to be smashed.
And then, as if that wasn't enough to thin out the crowd, Jesus drops another image that must have sent an absolute shiver down their spines. He says, whoever does not bear his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. Now, today we see crosses everywhere. On steeples, on necklaces, on T-shirts. It's a religious symbol of hope for us. But what did a cross mean to a first-century Jew standing in that crowd listening to him?
It meant one thing and one thing only: a dead man walking. It was not a metaphor for having a burden or dealing with a bad boss or, my arthritis is my cross to bear.
No.
Absolutely not. If you saw a man in Roman-occupied Judea carrying a crossbeam, the patibulum, he was on a one-way trip to a gruesome, shameful public execution.
He had no rights left.
None. He had no future. He had no self-will. He was already dead to the world. His body just hadn't caught up yet. It was the ultimate symbol of surrender to a superior power.
So Jesus is essentially turning to this crowd and saying, come follow me, but you have to bring your own electric chair.
Yes. Or bring your own noose. This is the Markan servant perspective coming through in a powerful way. A servant has no life of his own. He exists only to do the will of the master. Jesus is calling for a complete death to self-will. He's saying, don't even think about signing up for this if you aren't ready to lose your life in order to find it.
That's the great paradox, isn't it? It's right there in Matthew 10:39. He who finds his life will lose it, and he who loses his life for my sake will find it. It's like psychological judo.
It is. We spend our whole lives trying to build security, finding our life. We build up wealth, reputation, control. We try to secure ourselves. But Jesus says if you cling to that, you ultimately lose it. Why?
Because you die, or it fails you.
Exactly. But if you surrender it all, if you lose it to the King, you gain a life that is eternal and truly unshakable.
And to drive this point home, that this isn't some emotional spur-of-the-moment decision, Jesus gives two quick metaphors about planning: the tower builder and the warring king.
And both are about avoiding shallow, emotional decisions. The tower builder is all about the financial cost. He says, look, don't lay a foundation if you can't afford the roof or people will mock you.
Right.
It's a warning against starting the Christian life on some emotional high without realizing it's a marathon that requires resources and commitment you might not think you have.
And the warring king. This one really fascinated me when I was digging into the sources on it.
This is about the strategic cost. A king with 10,000 troops sees an enemy king coming at him with 20,000. Simple math says you lose that battle.
So what does wisdom dictate?
You send a delegation and you ask for terms of peace. You surrender before the slaughter.
But here's the aha moment for me, the twist in the metaphor. In this story, who is the enemy king coming with the overwhelming force of 20,000 troops?
And that's the scary and beautiful part. The stronger king is Jesus. He is God. You, the listener, you are the king with the puny 10,000. You cannot win a fight against him. You cannot bargain with him on equal terms. You cannot fight God and win.
So the lesson isn't try harder or fight smarter?
No. The lesson is surrender immediately. The only rational strategic move is unconditional surrender. You wave the white flag. That is what discipleship is. It's not a negotiation. It's a total recognition that he is the superior power, and your only hope for peace is to seek his terms.
That is such a powerful reframing of that parable. We usually think of discipleship as fighting for God, but this shows that first, we have to stop fighting against him.
Precisely. The cost of discipleship is the complete surrender of your autonomy.
Okay, so we've had the invitation, come to the party. We've had the cost, it'll cost you absolutely everything. Now we move into what might be the most famous chapter in the entire New Testament, Luke 15, the Lost Trilogy. But before we even get to the stories themselves, we have to set the scene again. Why does Jesus tell these three specific parables?
It's all about the audience. I mean, look at the camera angle here. We have tax collectors and sinners, the moral failures of society. They are drawing near to hear Jesus. And standing off to the side, arms crossed, whispering behind their hands, you have the Pharisees and the scribes.
And they are grumbling. They are complaining.
They are furious. And their complaint is very specific. This man receives sinners and eats with them.
There's that eating again. It always comes back to the table, doesn't it?
Always. To a Pharisee, table fellowship was an endorsement of someone's moral standing. By eating with sinners, Jesus was, in their eyes, contaminating himself.
So their sin is what?
Their sin is self-righteousness. It's a complete lack of joy in the idea of redemption. They only liked the idea of quarantine. They wanted the sinners kept away, separated. So Jesus tells 3 stories back to back to explain the heart of God toward the lost.
Okay, story number 1. The lost sheep. 1 sheep out of 100 wanders off. The shepherd leaves the 99 in the open country to go find it.
Let's apply our lenses here. Matthew also records this parable over in Matthew 18, but the context is a little different. It's about little ones, so believers who might be led astray or marginalized within the community.
So Matthew the king is showing what?
He's showing that the king values every single one of his subjects. It is not the king's will that even one of his subjects should perish. It's about pastoral care for the kingdom.
And Luke's focus.
Luke, with the ultimate man lens, focuses on the emotional aspect of the shepherd. The search is risky. I mean, he leaves the 99 in the wilderness, and when he finds the lost sheep, he doesn't beat it. He doesn't drive it back with a whip. He lays it on his shoulders.
He carries it.
He carries it. That is the portrait of a savior carrying the full burden of the helpless. It's an image of pure compassion.
In John's lens, the lens of God.
Oh, it connects beautifully to John 10, I am the good shepherd. And it's also a direct fulfillment of the prophecy in Ezekiel 34.
Remind us of that one.
In Ezekiel, God rebukes the false shepherds of Israel who fed themselves but didn't seek the lost. And then God says, and this is so powerful, I myself will search for my sheep and seek them out. So this isn't just a nice man looking for a pet. This is God himself stepping into the wilderness of the world to retrieve what is his.
Wow. Then he moves from a pastoral scene to a domestic one. The lost coin. A woman loses 1 silver coin, a drachma. She lights a lamp, she sweeps the house, and she searches diligently. Now I have to ask, why the shift? Why go from a sheep to a coin?
I think it's about the nature of the lostness. A sheep wanders off, it's foolish, it nibbles its way into danger, it has some, agency in its lostness.
Right.
But a coin is just lost. It's inanimate, it's helpless. It can't bleat for help, it can't find its own way back. It represents a different, more profound aspect of being lost, total inability. It has to be found.
And why is 1 coin such a big deal? She has 9 others.
It's like,
it seems like a lot of effort for 1 drachma. Is she just greedy?
Not at all. And this is where the cultural context is absolutely key. Many scholars believe these 10 silver coins were likely part of her wedding headdress, her dowry.
Oh.
In that culture, women often wore a chain of coins across their forehead to signify their married status. It was their wedding ring, their social security, their public identity as a wife.
Oh, well. So losing one wasn't just losing a day's wage.
It was a disaster. It was a social shame. It was like a modern bride losing the main diamond out of her engagement ring. It compromised her honor, her status.
Okay, so the frantic sweeping and lighting the lamp makes a lot more sense now.
Yes, and typologically, many theologians see a beautiful picture of the Trinity in these stories. The shepherd seeking the sheep is the son. The father is waiting in the next story. And here, the woman can represent the Holy Spirit or divine wisdom.
How so?
Well, she lights a lamp, which is often a symbol for the Word of God, and she sweets the house, the visible community, the world, to find the one thing that's stamped with the king's image, the Imago Dei.
And the punchline for both of these first 2 stories is the same word, joy.
Joy in the presence of the angels of God over one sinner who repents. Heaven isn't indifferent. Heaven throws a party. And that is a direct, stinging rebuke to the Pharisees. They are grumbling on earth while all of heaven is rejoicing. The Pharisees are completely out of sync with God's heart.
Which sets up the climax of the trilogy, the parable of the prodigal son. Or, as some scholars rightly call it, the parable of the 2 lost sons.
And that's a much better title, because both of them are lost. One is lost in the far country of rebellion. The other is lost in the backyard of self-righteousness.
Let's look at the younger one first. He comes to his father and asks for his inheritance early. Father, give me the share of property that is coming to me.
Which is just shocking. In a Middle Eastern patriarchal culture, asking for your inheritance while your father is still alive is the equivalent of saying, I wish you were dead. You were taking too long to die, and you were just an obstacle between me and my money.
It's a death wish.
It's the ultimate rejection of the father. And the father, Amazingly, he gives it to him. The son liquidates the assets, probably selling family land for pennies on the dollar, and goes to the far country.
This is the rebellion. He squanders it all on loose living, and then a famine hits. He ends up feeding pigs.
For a Jewish audience, you cannot get any lower than this. Pigs are unclean animals. He is now serving them, and he is so hungry, he is envious of their food. He is effectively dead. He has lost his money, his religion, his family, his dignity. He is completely hollowed out.
And then the text says something incredible. He came to himself.
That's the psychological breakthrough. The delusion of sin shatters. The fog lifts. He realizes, my father's hired servants live better than this. But notice his plan. He crafts a speech.
Right.
I will get up and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me as one of your hired servants.
He's looking for a job, not for sonship. He thinks he can work his way back, somehow pay off the massive debt he's incurred.
Exactly. He still has a legalistic, works-based mindset. I broke it, so I have to fix it. He thinks he has to earn his way back into the household.
But he never gets to finish that speech. The father sees him while he was still a long way off. And this is where the lens of God the Father's heart just explodes into the story. The father runs.
And we have to pause on the run. We miss the significance of this today because, we see dads jogging all the time.
Yeah.
But in that culture, a distinguished elderly patriarch never ran. Ever.
Why not?
To run, you had to hike up your long robes. You had to show your bare legs. It was considered shameful, undignified. Men of status walked with a slow, regal dignity.
So for the father to run.
For the father to run meant he willingly took shame upon himself. He sprinted toward the boy. And why? Many scholars suggest it was to intercept him because of something called the kazaza ceremony.
What's that?
If a Jewish boy lost his inheritance among Gentiles, when he returned to the village, the community leaders would break a pot at his feet and publicly cut him off forever. The father runs to get to the boy before he reaches the village. He bears the public shame to cover his son.
That is just profound. He takes the humiliation so the son doesn't have to.
Exactly. And he falls on his neck and kisses him. He interrupts that rehearsed hired servant speech. He immediately calls for three things. The robe, the best one, signifying restored righteousness and honor. The ring, a signet ring, signifying restored authority and sonship. And the sandals, because slaves went barefoot, but sons wore shoes.
It's total, immediate restoration. No probationary period. No, you can sleep in the barn for a month and we'll see how you do.
None. Just grace. Radical, unmerited, scandalous grace. And a party.
But the story doesn't end there. The camera pans out to the field, and we see the elder brother. He hears the music. He finds out the party is for his bad brother. And he is furious.
This is the mirror Jesus is holding up directly to the Pharisees in the room. The elder brother is in the field, he's working, he's obeying, and listen to his complaint to his father. Lo, these many years I have served you, and I never disobeyed your commandment.
He sounds like an employee, not a son.
He views his father as a taskmaster and their relationship as a contract. I did the work, I deserve the payment, which in his mind is a goat to party with his friends. He is just as lost as the younger brother, but his lostness looks like perfect obedience. He is lost in his own house.
And he refuses to go into the party.
Which is a public insult to the father, just as the younger son's leaving was. And again, the father has to leave his own party, debase himself to come out and plead with him.
The older brother, he just resents grace. He even calls his brother this son of yours. He won't even acknowledge him as my brother.
Right, and the father gently corrects him. Son, you are always with me, but we had to celebrate, for this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. But here is the absolute genius of Jesus' storytelling. We never find out if the older brother goes in.
Story just ends. It's a cliffhanger.
It's a cliffhanger because the Pharisees in the room were the older brother. Jesus was leaving the ending up to them. The question just hung there in the air in that dining room. Will you stand outside in the cold, clinging to your own righteousness? Or will you swallow your pride and enter the Father's joy?
That is so heavy. But Jesus isn't done yet. He pivots to another story that, I have to be honest, confuses a lot of people. Luke 16, the parable of the unjust steward.
This one is tricky. It's widely and rightly considered the most difficult parable to interpret.
Okay, let's break it down. You have a manager, a steward, who's getting fired for incompetence or for wasting his master's goods. He has a very short window of time before he's out on the street.
He's in a crisis.
And he says to himself, I'm too weak to dig ditches and I'm too proud to beg. So he comes up with a clever plan. He calls in his master's debtors one by one and starts slashing their bills. You owe 100 barrels of oil, just write down 50. You owe 100 bushels of wheat, make it 80.
He's effectively buying friends with his master's money. He's creating a network of people who will owe him a favor so that when he's unemployed, they'll let him crash on their couches.
He is being completely dishonest. He is stealing from his boss to secure his own future. But here's the twist that makes everyone just scratch their heads. The master commends him.
Yes. The master commended the dishonest manager for his shrewdness.
Wait a minute, he commends him for stealing. Is Jesus telling us we should be crooks?
No, absolutely not, and that's the key. He is commended not for the theft, but for the shrewdness, for the foresight. The master basically looks at the situation and says, I gotta hand it to you. That was clever. You saw a crisis coming, your unemployment, and you used the temporary resources you had control over to secure your future.
So what on earth is the lesson for the disciple?
Jesus explains it right after. For the sons of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own generation than the sons of light. A worldly person knows how to use money to get what they want in this life. Comfort, friends, security. Jesus is asking, why aren't my disciples that smart, that shrewd when it comes to eternal things?
He says, and I tell you, make friends for yourselves by means of unrighteous wealth. What does that mean?
He's saying, use unrighteous mammon, that's temporal, worldly wealth, to make friends for eternity. Invest your money in the kingdom. Invest in people. Invest in the gospel. Why? Because money will fail you.
How?
The dollar will collapse, or you'll lose it in the market, or you will die. You can't take it with you. But people, souls, they last forever.
Yeah.
If you use your temporary resources to bring people to God, when you die, they will be there to welcome you into eternal dwellings. It's basically investment advice for the afterlife. Leverage the temporary for the eternal.
And that brings us to the principle of faithfulness that follows. He who is faithful in what is least is faithful also in much.
And money is the least. It's the training wheels of faithfulness. Jesus is saying if God can't trust you with dollars, which are fleeting and ultimately unimportant in the grand scheme, why on earth would he trust you with true riches?
Which are what?
Spiritual authority, real power, the care of human souls. It's a test.
And the Pharisees, who are listening to this whole sermon on money, how do they react?
Luke tells us plainly. The Pharisees, who were lovers of money, heard all these things and they derided him. They mocked him. They sneered at him. Why?
Because he just went after their central idol.
He just attacked their God. They believed their wealth was a sign of God's favor and their own righteousness. Jesus just called it unrighteous mammon and told them to give it away for eternal purposes.
And Jesus just cuts right through them. He says, you are those who justify yourselves before men, but God knows your hearts. And then he drops a statement about the law that seems to tie this whole section together.
He clarifies that while the kingdom of God is breaking in, everyone is pressing into it, Gentiles and sinners are rushing in. This doesn't mean the law is going into the trash. He says, it is easier for heaven and earth to pass away than for one tittle of the law to fail.
How does that fit with all the grace we just saw? We just saw the father run to the prodigal son who broke all the laws.
It's the perfect theological balance. Jesus, as the king, is the fulfillment of the law, not its destroyer. He upholds the moral standard. Righteousness absolutely matters. Divorce is still wrong, as he mentions right after in verse 18. Holiness is still required. But he is also the shepherd who seeks the lost who have broken that law. He doesn't lower the standard. He pays the penalty for breaking it himself and then offers grace. He perfectly keeps the law so that he can have the right to forgive the lawbreaker.
So when we pull back and look at this entire section, invocation, cost, pursuit, stewardship, what is the synthesis? How do we connect all the dots of this beautiful mosaic?
It's a stunningly beautiful narrative arc. First, you have the invitation. God invites the hungry, the poor, the broken to a free banquet. That's grace.
Okay.
Second, the cost. To actually sit at that table, you have to dethrone every other idol. Your money, your family, your own life. That's discipleship.
Then what?
Third, the pursuit. When we inevitably fail and wander off like the sheep, or when we get lost in our own self-righteousness like the older brother, the king becomes the shepherd and chases us down. That's divine initiative.
And fourth?
And fourth, stewardship. Once we are found and restored, we don't just sit there getting fat at the party. We use our restored life and our temporary resources to invest in the king's kingdom.
Yeah.
That's faithfulness.
And behind all of this, there's a battle going on, isn't there? A spiritual one?
Oh, a massive spiritual battle. The enemy uses legitimate things, your job, your marriage, your bank account, to distract you from the Great Supper. He tries to keep the sheep isolated in the wilderness. He tries to keep the coin lost in the dust. And he absolutely loves to keep the elder brother seething with resentment out in the driveway.
While the shepherd, the woman, the father,
they are actively fighting against the entropy of sin to reclaim what belongs to them.
it really makes you ask yourself some hard questions.
Yeah.
Personally, like, what excuses am I making today? I'm too busy with work to really pray. I'm too busy with our new house to serve.
Or the elder brother question. I mean, that one just haunts me. Are we working hard for God, attending every service, keeping all the rules, but secretly, deep down, resenting the grace he shows to those people, the messy ones, the ones with the tattoos and the checkered past?
Because if we resent grace for others, we don't truly understand it for ourselves.
You don't. You're still trying to earn it.
It reminds me of the fourfold summary we started this whole deep dive with.
Yes. It brings it all together. He is the king, commanding our absolute allegiance. You must surrender.
He is the servant seeking the lost. You must be found.
He's the man weeping with compassion. You can always come home.
And he is God rejoicing over one sinner repenting. You are that valuable to him.
That's the whole picture.
Expert, this has been an incredible journey through these texts. It really, really changes how you read them when you see them woven together like this.
It does, doesn't it? It moves them from just Sunday school stories we think we know into a radical, life-altering call to action.
Before we go, we always like to leave the listener with a final provocative thought, something to chew on.
I think we have to go back to that cliffhanger in Luke 15. The story of the prodigal son ends without telling us what happened next. The father is standing outside the party, pleading with the angry, self-righteous, hard-working older brother to come in. The music is playing inside, the door is wide open. But the brother is just standing there with his arms crossed.
We don't know if he ever went in.
We don't. And I believe Jesus left it open-ended for a reason. Because the Pharisees in the room were the older brother. And you listening are the older brother. I am the older brother. The sermon ends and the question remains for every single one of us. Are you standing outside in the cold, judging how God distributes his grace, or will you swallow your pride, drop your resentment, and enter the Father's joy?
That is the question. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
It's been a pleasure.